January the 5th, 2022. Guys, you're looking at one of the links on our website at bpearthwatch.com. It's called Sat Flare. It's on the bottom left column of links. Been there for years. We've used it tracking many satellites that were falling, things like that. Now, this time it's a little different. This is called the IPM-3 Percy. It's Russia's largest rocket ever. They haven't launched it in a couple of decades, but they finally did in late December. It didn't quite make it into the geostationary orbit, and it started falling back to Earth. And one of the rockets in the second stage, I think it was, did not fire. Now, the cowling is missing from the top of this rocket. I'm going to show you a picture of it. It's huge, maybe 200 feet. They're saying 20 tons. I'm not sure if that's with all the fuel that's involved in the liquid oxygen, things like that. But it's falling back to Earth now. You can see where it's located. It is in the Atlantic Ocean here, south of Africa. Notice this is the track. We're going to look at it. They're saying this thing is expected to decay around Wednesday. That's today. At 18,2300 hours, plus or 2 minus hours, because they don't know exactly how it's going to re-enter. Is it going to re-enter straight and be very fast, or be spinning, slow it down because of friction? But this timing at 1823, guys, is 1:23 East Coast time this afternoon. Okay, we're 6 hours difference. They're 6 hours ahead of us UTC time. Now remember, plus or 2 minus hours on the impact. Now, to me, it's really suspicious how this thing is happening, because Russia has said, and now they're quiet since they're saying it failed. They were tracking it, NORAD and everybody tracking it, said it failed and it's collapsed. Russia became silent. This is after a big nationwide celebrations there that they had liftoff of this massive giant rocket, right? Well, the stages haven't separated, and it's falling back. But, again, the cowling is missing off the front, the nose cone. And if you ask me, this was not a dummy test. You're not going to spend this many millions of dollars on a rocket this size and the launch and all the things that go with it for a dummy payload. I think because the cowling is missing, they delivered their payload. Whatever type satellite this thing was lifting is there. The rocket is falling back. That's my opinion, and nothing else makes sense. We're in a war on this planet, a technology war, space war. So you're not going to get all the information. I'm just saying that I think payload was delivered. They don't care about the rest of this, but they have become silent. Now, I also think that this re-entry time, and I may be wrong here, is a little premature, simply because of the height involved in the passes. If you've tracked with us for 10 or 12 years now, you'll have high points and low points in orbit, because it's not a round orbit around our globe. It's more elliptical. And so you're going to have, as the satellite starts to drop and decline in elevation, it's going to skid over the edge of the atmosphere and make an elongated orbit. So it's going to rise a little further as you're watching the height. It's not just going to slowly descend if you start watching the elevation on this thing, okay? This thing is showing 135 kilometers altitude now. 135, you can see it right in the very center right there. Here's your azimuth and elevation, but the altitude, 135. It's not moving right now. That's telling you that it's at a point to where it's probably going to start descending, and you can see that right now, 134.9 in the altitude. Again, it's moving very fast, and you can see it approaching Africa now. We'll go over this area, Romania, up through Russia, come back around again. It's circling the Earth every hour and a half, very fast rotations, very large rocket. Now, also, we have a second tracker on there, and it's on the right side, and it's called Sat Tracker. But N2YO is the name of the tracking company. What you're dealing with here, they give you altitude and miles per hour if you don't want to have to deal with the kilometers. Altitude in miles, 8426 right there. See that? Altitude 135, 8428, 8429, 8431. So it's back into a rise now. Now, speed 7.82 kilometers per second, gets it around the planet in 88 minutes. The altitude is getting lower. That will bring it down into where it starts to heat up into reentry. We don't know what's going to happen with the remaining rocket fuel. Will that catch on fire? Will it explode? Will it compress, expand? Whatever it will do may affect how this rocket holds together. The more solid it stays together, the more impact that it will have when it comes down. If it gets sideways and the fuel starts exploding, you may get multiple pieces. Some will burn up in the atmosphere. But if the thing comes down straight or more aerodynamic, then more of it will be able to withstand reentry. The rocket is huge, and a lot of times, even though this is indicating where IPM-3 Percy is, that's the NORAD designation, it shows that it has, solar fins on the side of the satellite, things like that. This is not a satellite. This is just a marker. This thing has no external solar panels and things like that will start to drag and peel off and pull back. This thing is huge. It was supposed to separate into different pieces, things like that. Some of it remain in space. I don't think they really cared about the results. I think they did everything they can to get this largest rocket they've put up in years up. Payload was delivered. Now the rest is falling back. But usually when you get around this 85 miles per hour, altitude and height, 85 miles, you're going to start to see some burn through. Below 90 down to 60 miles becomes very dangerous as far as what's going to happen at reentry. Still may be a little early. We're going to have to keep an eye on this thing. Again, it's predicted to come in 1:30 or so this afternoon Eastern time, plus or minus 2 hours. And that plus or minus 2 hours would allow for the difference in the drag and the speed depending how this rocket re-enters the atmosphere. Russia is still very silent on this thing. But guys, we're going to watch it throughout the day, and when we get closer to this re-entry point, we may go live. If I have time to get in here and go live for an hour or so and leave this particular map up, we're going to do that. But I want to show you this rocket. Now, the rocket itself is called an Angara A5, and it says the Russian Angara 5 rocket successfully launched from Russia on December 27th. However, its upper stage Perseus rocket and attached payload failed to get into orbit. It is now tumbling back to Earth. While it was a military launch, are you listening? Russian space agency Roscosmos shared this photograph of the rocket ahead of the December launch. Again, military launch. Dummy payload, not happening. Don't believe that. An upload forecast released today suggests that an out-of-control Russian rocket tumbling back towards Earth could strike on Wednesday afternoon, And an updated forecast shared by Joseph Remus on satflare.com and Twitter shows the rocket re-entering around 12:44 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, January 5th. Again, that's about an hour early. We'll just see. Because the rocket is uncontrolled and could shift around erratically as it enters the Earth's atmosphere, impact could occur, he's saying, plus or minus 7 hours. Probably that's more correct than plus or minus 2 hours, but we're going to have to see. Returning to Earth in an out-of-control manner is the Perseus upper stage rocket, which carried a dummy payload into space as part of Russia's Angara A5 rocket test. Too much money for a test. The top piece of this, the cone, the cowling, is missing. The satellite was launched. Don't care what anybody says about this thing. The Russians are very intelligent. They know how to do this. Now, I'm not saying they did not have some problems with the second stages and all of this rocket, but the payload was launched. Was it high enough in orbit, or was the satellite itself able to escape into a geostationary orbit? We don't know that yet. We will find out in the future if they start picking up the satellite, if they even let us know about it. But guys, this is what we got, what we're dealing with right now today. Again, they're saying 20 tons. I think that's without the fuel, possibly without some of the payload. I'm not sure, but that's still a pretty heavy load. But notice the symmetry of the rocket. It doesn't have all the big, again, solar panels and antennas sticking out in all directions. That's going to spin it and cause burn up and fires as these things peel off. We're watching it, guys. Pay attention. I'll put the link to the tracker under the video. It's a heads up. Be safe.